Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we discuss advertising, marketing, and youth high-risk behavior. There is evidence that high-risk products like alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis are aggressively promoted to underage youth. Dr. David Jernigan from the Boston University School of Public Health joins us to share the science that can help us better understand these risks and protect our children. Dr. Jernigan, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I am a bit of an accidental academic. I started out in this field as an advocate, and then at a certain point was doing so much science and needed a base, and came into academia. But my passion here is really about doing the right thing, giving our kids in particular a fair shake at the future I think we want them to have. And I've been in this field for more than 35 years. A lot of what I've tried to do is give communities more of a leg up in battling the gigantic corporations that want to define our lives, our cultures, our values around these substances. I think communities, families, parents ought to at least have an equal place at that table.
You know, it's fascinating because the least amount of parental guidance really involves children's interactions with media, especially the internet-based ones. And I'd like to ask you if this is a fair point to make, that the advertising that the children are exposed to today in all forms on media is the most prolific influencer of their behavior.
Oh, absolutely. We are raising the most marketed to generations in their history of human beings. And furthermore, they are marketed to at this point with the use of algorithms, of highly sophisticated use of data, which neither they nor their parents have given full permission for the use of. And these algorithms mean that on the one hand, the companies can very, very effectively target the people, including young people, including people in recovery, who are most likely to be interested in their products. That's the first thing. But the second thing is it's virtually impossible for anybody else to monitor what's happening there. Back in the day when we had broadcast networks, even when we had cable, people like me could buy the Nielsen data and we could show exactly where the companies were putting the ads, where kids were more likely to see them than adults. And I did that for 15 years at the Center on Alcohol Marketing and Youth, first at Georgetown and then at Johns Hopkins. But with algorithmic targeting, these data are proprietary. Facebook will not share their data. Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, they won't share that data. They're selling it for a lot of money or renting it for a lot of money to the advertisers themselves. The second thing is, people used to say that half of advertising spending is wasted, but nobody can tell which half. Well, now they're much more likely to be able to tell which half. And there's one story I love to tell, which is I helped organize a global conference on alcohol policy in Dublin, Ireland, just before the pandemic. And a group of young people from Dare in Texas flew in to attend the conference. They landed in Dublin. They put Global Alcohol Policy Conference into the search function on their phones. And because they'd used the word alcohol for the next week while they were in Ireland, they were being served alcohol ads. That simply shouldn't happen.
That's exactly correct. Now, I just read a book on algorithms, and there's some fascinating, well, I'd call it information, but it really points to the fact that we're uninformed. They looked at algorithms used for hiring and screening people's resumes. So people applying for jobs that don't have any chance for a face-to-face interaction and being judged on various parameters, like character, psychology, background work, things like that. And what they said was that before the algorithms, about 50% of people hired lasted at best a year to a year and a half. In other words, it was a flawed process of hiring. So now the people that designed the parameters for the algorithms are the same ones that had a 50% success rate. And then the algorithms have less success than the rate at which the people authoring them have, because obviously their performance as humans was only 50-50, let's say. So we've got this sort of diminutive process of reducing people to numbers, like you say with the algorithms. And one of the things that's argued often, because companies don't even share their results with people, they comb through thousands of resumes, and what they're doing is saving labor. But the thing that we've noticed, and that goes back to your research in alcohol too, is that these methodologies have absolutely no moral or ethical conscience.
Yeah. Well, it's also very different to use algorithms to sell a highly addictive product versus using them to do hiring. Getting a job is not an addictive process.
Wow, this is great stuff. We're going to take a short break and we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Jernigan. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out, Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, rude kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're with Dr. David Jernigan, a scientist dedicated to protecting youth from some dangerous predatory tactics. Now, we have internet and highly addictive products basically in the same breath, which is a dangerous combination, and a whole new media that is difficult to understand. And that's exactly what your specialty is, David. Can you share some insights as to how it works?
Yeah, sure. We are in the middle of a gigantic, what we would call natural experiment with these new techniques of marketing and looking at how they're affecting young people in particular. What's important to note is there are maybe 5 key differences between digital marketing and the traditional marketing that we used to have in broadcast and print. In the first place, digital marketing is participatory. It's what we call push rather than pull. You are bringing it to you. You are not, I'm sorry, pull rather than push. You are bringing it to you. An advertiser is not trying to push it at you. So it's participatory. As we talked about, it's algorithmic and data-driven. It's also dark and ephemeral in that if you and I are on the same site at the same time, we'll be served different ads, simply based on our prior behavior on the web. And the advertisers know that. So this is particularly challenging if parents are trying to monitor what their young people are seeing. It's virtually impossible unless you're standing there looking over your young person's shoulder 24/7. And most parents have other things they have to do. It's material and logistical. These are the last 2. It creates in-the-moment experiences, particularly in the mobile sphere. And it's logistical in that there is a seamless flow from identifying your preferences, knowing where you are, targeting you with an ad, and presenting you with a purchase opportunity. This is a level of sophistication that we simply never had.
Now, it's called sophistication, from one extreme, but on the other extreme, I feel it's extremely, it targets people. I mean, it's a predatory sort of methodology.
Well,
And I know
marketing,
that kids are exposed to thousands of pop-ups and ads a day. How do they manage that sort of thing to sort of mine a child's behavior?
it's a really good question, and I don't know that anybody is managing it particularly well. We need to introduce into the conversation that young people's drinking has fallen precipitously over the last 20 years. And a lot of that, ironically, is due to the same media that we're talking about. Young people are spending a lot more time alone, a lot more time relating to each other in virtual spaces. So drinking is down, teen pregnancy is down. The kinds of risky things that kids used to do together, they're down. On the other hand, the high-risk things that happen when kids are alone, like suicide, and mental health problems, those are up substantially. Still, these industries, it was true of tobacco, it's very true of alcohol, is these industries lose their best customers every year. They die from the diseases related to addiction to these products. And they have to replace those customers in order to survive as a business. So they will do everything they can to recruit new consumers. They have to. That's the nature of the economic system we live in. It's incumbent on us, though, given that we're in that economic system, to put the guardrails in place that are going to be protective. And that's where we've really failed on alcohol. That's where we have a lot of lessons to learn from tobacco. And that's where we're about to fail very badly on cannabis. And let me say a little bit about those guardrails, because marketing, a marketer thinks about marketing in terms of the 4 Ps. You want to have the right product in the right place, promoted promoted in the right way, and at the right price. So product, place, promotion, and price. In each of these categories, there are specific things that we should be doing, and we're doing a lot of them in tobacco. We have raised the price of tobacco products enormously, primarily through state, a little bit through federal, but mostly through state tax increases. We have convinced the state attorneys general, brought lawsuits against the tobacco companies and got them to back away from most of the marketing that we do. So that's promotion. So price, promotion, product. This is where tobacco is still pretty out of control in that the industry, you saw it with vapes, and this is where cannabis is completely out of control. I cannot list the number of different ways that are available to people to ingest cannabis at this point, and they've developed them so that there's no odor, they're easy to conceal. It's a very innovative industry, but the guardrails simply aren't in place. There's no good reason. States should be allowing an 85% THC product to be marketed, just over the counter. And yet that's what we've got. And then a lot of places we've got them, you don't even have to leave your house. You can get it through home delivery. So price, alcohol, the price of alcohol is so low compared to other beverages at this point. It wasn't like that when I was a child. Again, the main reason states and the federal government pretty much stopped raising their alcohol taxes around 1970. Well, the price of everything else has gone up. This means pretty much every year that there's inflation, which is almost every year, alcohol gets a tax cut. That's just not right for a product that's killing 140,000 Americans a year, that is the #1 cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds in this country. It's kind of duking it out with opioids, but you hear a lot about the opioids. You hear much, much less about alcohol.
We're going to get to this again and really unravel this terrible difficulty that we're having with children as parents to understand these risks. We'll see you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Dad, I'm not not glitching.
I told you with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove. You told me not to do drugs. You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Dr. David Jernigan from Boston University School of Public Health. Doctor, why does alcohol and cannabis, things we know the dangers associated with, are persisting as such a problem with underage youth?
Well, from my perspective, you have to follow the money. We were able to estimate how much money alcohol companies made off of underage youth consumption of alcohol. In 2016, it was $17 billion. Can you imagine what it would be like if we had that money to spend on prevention, if we had that money even to spend on schools? So there's a lot of money at stake here. And those moneyed interests in our political system, you know, at the federal level, the alcohol industry has somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 lobbyists for the 500 odd members of Congress. That is more than 1 to 2 teacher to student ratio. Yeah.
Well, the methods that they use to target kids, how can parents best engage it? I mean, should they be doing quote unquote preemptive strikes, talking to kids about these risks? Should they be getting online with them and showing it? Because kids don't like to be fooled. They don't like to be used, but this is an emerging threat. So a lot of kids are fully engaged, and even the media is slightly addictive, which complicates matters even more.
Sure. So eyeballs are money. And that's what the media companies know. That's what the advertisers know. So this is all about renting eyeballs. What can parents do? I mean, the first thing is you start at home and you look at your own drinking. The single most important influence on a young person's drinking is the drinking of their parents. But beyond that, as a parent, we have many teachable moments. I raised 2 teenagers. When they were teens and an alcohol ad would come on, I would routinely make fun of it. I'd get them to laugh about it. I'd, joke about all the things that you'll never see in an alcohol ad, whatever. Those are teachable moments. We have to talk to our kids about alcohol, and we have to talk to our kids about alcohol marketing. What was effective in the tobacco counter advertising campaigns were the ads that showed kids that the companies were trying to manipulate them. There's a really famous ad called Boardroom, and it's big conference room table, a bunch of big guys in suits sitting around the table cackling about how they were going to trick kids into getting addicted to nicotine. The nature of addiction for nicotine, for alcohol, etc., our brains are very plastic up till about age 25. There's a particular window of vulnerability in the adolescent years when the areas of the brain associated with risk-taking and immediate reward are developing more quickly than the areas of the brain around long-term planning and estimating consequences. That window, the advertisers are fully aware of that window, and they drive whatever trucks they possibly can through it, because that's the time when they can win customers for an addictive product, basically for life. Now, the advertising, I want to talk a little bit about the one form of advertising where you can't turn the page, you can't change the channel, and you can't click away from it. and this is billboards. This is outdoor. And frankly, you know, it was one of the best things that happened relatively early on in tobacco was we got rid of the outdoor advertising, but we're nowhere near that for alcohol. And the cannabis outdoor advertising is outrageous. I'm here in Massachusetts and we have pictures of a schoolyard and then across from it, the cannabis billboards, just sitting where the kids have no choice but to look at them all day long if they're going to go to school, and we want them to go to school. This simply isn't fair, and it is possible, particularly on cannabis, it's possible for states to ban this kind of advertising. Maryland just did it in their legalization. The other thing that states could be doing on cannabis advertising is advertising expenses are tax deductible for these industries as a business expense. Well, this is an industry that's still illegal at the federal level, so states are writing the tax laws. The states could simply make the advertising expenses taxable. That would very effectively disincentivize some of this advertising. No state's done that.
You know, we look not just at billboards. I noticed driving through the communities that any stores that sell these products, their windows are plastered with these things.
Yeah, no, retail signage is another area, and it's an area where communities around the country have been able to take action. The Friday Night Live group in California has a really neat workbook on how you can engage youth in doing this kind of work at the community level. And that kind of participatory change, when we treat young people as citizens rather than recipients of knowledge, then I think we're on our way to a stronger society.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, we're going to have you back for one more session, and we're going to ask you to share some comments, insights, and inspiration for our viewers, things that they need to take home with them to make their lives safer and lives safer for their kids. See you all after the break.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
The fact is, we use the internet for almost everything we do. Smart cage, feed beaker. So when the internet doesn't work the way it should, you don't work the way you should.
Kevin!
That's why more homes and businesses rely on MediaCom. Our fiber-powered network delivers 99.99% reliability. And with 650,000 miles of fiber, we have more paths of connection and more ways to avoid outages. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours for you to rely on.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to bed.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we're talking about advertising, marketing, and youth high-risk behavior. Let's see what insights and inspiration our guest, Dr. David Jernigan, has to share. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have to say, if there's one thing that I would like the viewers to take away from this, it's taxes. The single most effective thing we could do to reduce underage drinking, as well as a whole range of other alcohol-related problems, is to raise the excise tax or put a sales tax on alcohol. We did this in Maryland in 2011, added a 3% sales tax to alcohol. It's raising somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 million that's going to all sorts of good causes. But we also have studies that have shown it reduced alcohol consumption, it reduced underage drinking, it reduced sexually transmitted diseases, and it reduced the number of impaired drivers on the Maryland roadways. It's so simple. Price matters. And even with an addictive product like alcohol, even among the heavy drinkers, a price increase will make a difference. And of course, youth are quite price sensitive. I've done this exercise over and over again. Go into a corner store, a convenience store, whatever, and do the Price is Right exercise. What's the cheapest form of liquid available? And it's often not going to be the milk, the orange juice, the soda pop, or even the water. It's going to be the beer. And the principal reason for that is that our taxes have not kept up with inflation. We have failed our kids. We failed ourselves by not paying attention to this piece of the alcohol marketing mix.
So let's take a look at this, because that's a powerful thing. I mean, taxes, people hate them, but if they work for a common good, that's okay. Now, for parents that do drink, and you've pointed out that the best thing they can do is to stop drinking, and maybe that's not an option. Does it help if they limit the drinking? They don't drink in front of their children and sort of compartmentalize their drinking to help them sort of give them less exposure, and don't put the alcohol in places where they can see it, like the refrigerator and stuff.
Well, I have to speak to the research here, and that we don't have research on those kinds of strategies. What we do have research on is things like, parents, you ought to speak up about the number of places to buy alcohol in your neighborhood. The more places to buy alcohol that kids walk by on their way to school, the more likely they are to drink underage. It's that simple. And then we talked before about the retail signage. We did a study in Baltimore City where we counted the ads visible from the street, and we then looked at violent crime in those neighborhoods, direct association between those ads and violence in the neighborhoods, as well as lots of other things connected with alcohol. Point is, there are lots of things we can do at the local level to reduce the likelihood our kids are going to get into trouble with alcohol. And a lot of them have to do with changing the conditions our kids find themselves in. That's where we need to be citizens, and we need to engage in the policy process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jernigan, for sharing these important points. And I hope our parents listen carefully, because we thank you all for watching us today as well. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.